In the future, breakthroughs in biotechnology lead to machines and analog computers capable of controlling bodily functions, becoming commonplace. At the same time, humanity undergoes unexplained biological changes. Pain and infectious diseases vanish for most, allowing surgeries to be done without anesthesia in everyday settings. However, some humans develop unusual physiological changes. One such child, 8-year-old Brecken, can naturally consume and digest plastic as food. The boy's mother stands on the balcony gazing at the beach and warns him not to eat anything he finds along the shore. After playing outside, the boy returns home, brushes his teeth, and spits into the plastic trash bin in the bathroom. Then, to his mother's shock, he starts eating the trash with enthusiasm. We are off to a good start with this story, I guess. She catches him but says nothing, silently walking him to bed. Later that night, when the boy is fast asleep, she enters his room with a pillow. Placing it over his face, she smothers him. The boy struggles, gasping for air and calling out to her, but she presses down harder until he stops moving. Without showing any sadness, the mother sits in the bathroom, emotionless. She picks up her phone and calls her ex-husband, the boy's father. Calmly but with bitterness, she informs him that the boy's body is in the beach house and he can come to collect it. She coldly remarks that she doesn't see the boy as their child, calling him a monster because of his ability to eat plastic. Only after ending the call does the mother finally break down and cry. Hours later, the father arrives, devastated, and mourns over the lifeless body of his son. Saul Tenser and Caprice, a famous performance artist duo, turned Tenser's accelerated evolution syndrome into their art. This condition causes his body to grow new organs, which Caprice surgically removes during live performances. The syndrome leaves Tenser in constant pain, requiring him to rely on special biomechanical devices like a surgery machine, an eating chair, and a supportive bed. The couple visits the National Organ Registry, a government office cataloging evolved organs to regulate human evolution. One of the bureaucrats, Timlin, becomes fascinated by their work. Timlin later explains that the government is worried about how human bodies are changing quickly due to pollution and climate change. Many people no longer feel pain, which has led to strange new abilities. To monitor these changes, the government created the organ registry to track unusual mutations. They called Saul in because of his unique condition. Timlin is nervous and questions Caprice about her relationship with Saul. Caprice explains that they are a performance art duo. Their shows involve her surgically removing the new organs Saul's body keeps growing, using a special machine and ink, all in front of a live audience. Caprice also shares how they met. Saul was a wounded soldier, and she was the surgeon who treated him. Over time, their love for each other and their shared fascination with the body's evolution led them to turn their passion into art. Saul lies on a table once again, as Timlin and the investigator examine one of his new organs. They explain that they would tattoo the organ for tracking purposes. The investigator adds that people who develop this ability to grow new organs seem to be able to pass it down to their children. The government is now pushing for stricter control over mutations, especially since many believe these children with new abilities may no longer be fully human. Caprice discreetly tries to film Saul's examination with a hidden ring camera, but the uptight Timlin quickly shuts her down, saying it's not allowed. Before leaving, Saul casually invites Timlin and the investigator to attend their next performance. Later, 2 technicians from the company that built Saul's specialized bed and chair visit his apartment for maintenance. They marvel at Saul's rare autopsy unit, which hasn't been manufactured in years. Caprice explains that she uses it during their live performances, emphasizing its importance to their art. The night of their next show arrives and a large crowd gathers in the dimly lit theater. Among the audience are the 2 technicians, Timlin and the investigator. On stage, Saul lies naked inside the autopsy unit, while Caprice, dressed in a striking dark red dress, commands attention. A glowing ring of buttons on her chest flashes as she skillfully controls the machine's limbs. With precise movements, the unit opens Saul's body, extracting one of his newly grown organs, now marked with Caprice's freshly inked tattoo. The crowd erupts in applause. In the audience, Brecken's father quietly watches the performance. He doesn't react outwardly, simply pulling out a candy bar and eating it while observing the scene. I am just like him, I just realized. After the show, Timlin approaches Saul and Caprice, who are relaxing backstage. Saul is bundled in a heavy dark cloak, looking drained but satisfied. Timlin leans in awkwardly close to Saul, confessing that the surgical performance aroused her, comparing it to an intimate act. Saul smirks, proud that their art has evoked such a strong reaction. Caprice, however, is uncomfortable with Timlin's blatant flirting and watches the interaction with a disapproving frown. Her possessive glare says it all. She isn't thrilled about sharing Saul's attention, even for the sake of their art. In another part of the theater, a man grabs a candy bar left on the counter by the dead boy's father. He takes a bite, but within moments, he chokes and collapses, dead. Later, Timlin and the investigator are questioned by a police detective. The detective is skeptical about Saul and Caprice's performances, doubting whether they qualify as art. Timlin defends them, saying that Saul uses his condition as a way to express himself artistically. The investigator adds that Saul might be mentally influencing his body to grow new organs. The next morning, Saul and Caprice notice that another organ has already started developing in Saul's body, much sooner than expected. Saul is thrilled and jokes that they need to schedule even more performances to keep up with his rapid changes. Saul attends a performance by another artist who has ears growing all over his body like mushrooms. While there, a biotech company employee approaches him and suggests he consult a cosmetic surgeon about his condition. As Saul steps into the alley outside, the dead boy's father spots him and approaches. The man proposes an unusual idea. Saul and Caprice should perform a live autopsy on his son's body. He cryptically promises that they'll find something surprising inside. Saul shares the idea with Caprice, who agrees, though she points out that they'll need to modify the autopsy unit first. To test the machine, Caprice lies inside it naked, while Saul operates the controls to see what adjustments are needed. Later that night, Saul sneaks out of the apartment to meet the detective. It's revealed that Saul has been working undercover for the police, helping them investigate the rise in extreme body modifications. Saul mentions the suggestion to meet with a surgeon, and the detective encourages him to pursue it. The detective also requests a meeting with the boy's mother, who killed her son at the start of the story. The two technicians return to Saul's apartment once again to fine-tune the autopsy unit for the upcoming performance. Saul visits the cosmetic surgeon, who suggests an unusual procedure, installing a zipper on Saul's stomach. This would make it easier for him to show off his vestigial organs without needing constant surgery. Saul meets with the surgeon, who not only suggests attaching a zipper to his stomach for easier organ display, but also invites him to an underground competition where participants showcase their unique, evolving organs. Intrigued, Saul agrees. At home, Saul reveals his new modification to Caprice. She kneels beside him, tenderly exploring his open stomach, creating an intimate and unusual moment between them. The next day, Saul visits the prison to speak with the dead boy's mother. She insists her son was no longer human but a creature created by the father, a member of a radical evolutionist group. This group has surgically modified their digestive systems to process plastics. The candy bar the father ate during the show, she reveals, was made of toxic waste, explaining why the man who unknowingly ate it died. Meanwhile, the boy's father visits the warehouse where his group produces the candy bars. He tells his second-in-command that he plans to go public with his son's ability, confident it will inspire others to join their cause. Caprice attends an art performance where a woman has scars artistically carved into her face. Fascinated by the raw beauty and brutality of the act, Caprice is invited to an after-party. Later, she returns home with fresh scar modifications on her forehead, surprising Saul. She explains that she wants to push her boundaries as an artist and asks to lead the upcoming autopsy show. Saul agrees. Saul visits the organ registry, first meeting with the investigator, who also runs the underground pageant. The investigator hints that Saul has an excellent chance of winning. Then, Saul talks to Timlin and asks if she knows about people modifying their digestive systems to eat plastic. Timlin denies it, claiming she's only encountered isolated organ growths. She attempts to seduce Saul, but he rejects her. That evening, Saul and Caprice meet the boy's father to discuss the autopsy performance. Caprice hesitates at the idea of cutting open a child's body publicly, but the father insists it's necessary to challenge the government's crackdown on evolutionists. He argues that Saul's struggles with feeding chairs and organ-growing beds are proof that human bodies are evolving in response to environmental destruction. He presents the candy bars as a solution, hinting that Saul's body might be capable of digesting them. Later, Saul meets with the detective, revealing his undercover role in investigating the evolutionist group. The detective encourages Saul to infiltrate the group further and suggests following up with the surgeon's lead. Elsewhere, two female technicians visit the surgeon under the guise of adjusting his feeding chair. Instead, they murder him by drilling into his skull, leaving his body in the chair. Saul and Caprice meet the father again, who shares more about his group. He explains their global network and belief that humans must evolve to survive environmental destruction. All members underwent surgeries to process plastics and toxic waste, but his son was unique, born with this ability naturally. The father sees him as a symbol of hope, and since his wife killed the boy, he plans to use the autopsy to reveal his son's unique digestive system to the world. On the night of the show, the boy's body is placed inside the autopsy unit as Caprice delivers a moving narration. Saul operates the machine, cutting the boy open while the audience, including the investigators and technicians, watches. However, when they expose the boy's stomach, it looks like a normal human's with decayed organs and crude tattoos. The father flees in tears. Despite the unexpected outcome, Caprice improvises, turning the discovery into a powerful artistic statement. Outside the theater, the grieving father sits on the steps only to be approached and killed by the technicians, who drill into his head. Saul meets with the detective again and demands the truth. The detective admits that Timlin tampered with the boy's body, replacing his unique organs with normal ones to suppress the truth about evolution. She hoped to gain Saul's favor by eliminating Caprice as a rival. Saul, disillusioned with the police and government, expresses his admiration for the father's cause and implies he won't continue working undercover. The next day, Saul feels sicker and weaker, struggling once more with his feeding chair. Frustrated, he decides to try one of the candy bars made by the evolutionists. Caprice opens it and feeds him. As Saul takes his first bite, the pain disappears from his face, and he experiences pure euphoria. For the first time, Saul accepts his condition not as a disease but as a sign of humanity's future evolution. The film ends with Saul embracing his transformation, symbolizing hope for survival in a changing world. And you, my friend, can change to an interesting news story by clicking on the videos on the right next. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this recap. Grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon.